Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game S. So today we're going to continue the series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project, and as of this morning, the core has been updated with one of the biggest updates it's got in the entire development cycle. TLB is here, not in its completion, but it brought alive 5 more games you were never able to play before. I spoke with Robert FPGA's newest boss, the core developer, and he said it was about 20% implemented, and he still has about 80% of the work to go. But this little smiling plumber face right here, the one you can grab and pinch and tweak to your heart's content, never used to work on the core outside of this morning when we got the new update because the TLB virtual memory addressing space had not been implemented. But that means a lot of other games have come alive today, and some that you guys have been asking me to preview the minute they worked. Killer Instinct Gold now works 100% from start to finish. There's still going to be a visual glitch here and there, but this went from freezing the minute you got control of your character to being 100% playable, and people on the MiSTer Discord have finished the game with multiple characters, so you can sit down from start to finish and play Killer Instinct. Now, fair warning, it's been years since I've played this. I am not the biggest fan, so if you think I suck playing it, that is probably true. But we're not here to talk about gameplay statistics and strategies. We're here to talk about the fact that this just works, and it didn't work outside of like 6 hours ago, because this happened this morning, and this is a bonus episode of this series. Because if you haven't noticed in comments, I have been hinting that I thought TLB was coming soon, and here we are. Now, do be aware I'll go through a list of games that aren't currently working that do utilize TLB towards the later half of the video, but if you want to play Killer Instinct Gold today, you can just fire it up on your MiSTer with the most recent core and start playing. And I will say it's probably the best fighting game on the console, but it's not exactly the deepest roster of fighting games either. But this was so popular in arcades, and I remember when this came home to Nintendo 64, a lot of my friends back in the day absolutely fell in love with it, and we would play here and there. But I know this is a lot of people's favorite game, and it's going to be a really exciting moment to find out that Killer Instinct Gold now works on the core. We're about a little over 90% of all games booting and being playable, and that number is definitely going to improve as Robert continues to add code to the DLB in the core in and of itself. But just seeing here, Spinal against Saberwolf, the controls are responsive, the graphics look good. I am not 100% familiar with everything from this game, but if you see any visual glitches, leave me a comment down below, because I'm sure a lot of you have played it a lot more than I have. If I'm going to play a fighting game, it's definitely going to be made by SNK, and it's probably going to be on the Neo Geo or otherwise. But again, it's just so much fun to see the real-time innovation. It was only like 5 months ago that this core would not boot a single game. Now we seem like we're really rounding the home stretch of bug fixes and the last implementations of stuff like TLB. Do be aware though, there's a couple other features, including LOD or level of detail features in the core that are not yet strung together. So this isn't the final bit that has to happen to the core, it's just one of them. Another game that came alive this morning that never worked before is Mario Golf. And this is probably my favorite game of the lot. I used to play the ever-loving hell out of this back in the day with friends, and I still think it holds up as one of the best golf games of all time, not called Neo Turf Masters, because that game will always be #1 to me. And it's just so fun to be able to have these games here, because this is going to be a great game for when you have friends over for game night. And poor Luigi always gets picked on. Of the 4 characters in the intro, he's the only one that sliced it into the trees. I swear Luigi never gets a break whatsoever. But if there's anything wrong with Mario Golf, I certainly can't tell, and I do have this game in my collection, and probably played it like 6-8 months ago casually with my wife just for a game night that we did together. You'll see here as we get the flyover intro screen, it just is working perfectly fine. All of the graphics, that window within the window, the background, all of the models, if there's anything wrong with this image, you would have to pixel peep to find it, and I absolutely just spanked the first shot off the tee. That is a frozen rope down the center of the fairway. That's what you hope for in real life. And you don't know much about my life, but I was one of the Division I state championships for high school in golf, so I've been playing a lot, and I'll tell you, a shot like that doesn't come around all that often. But all jokes about my life aside, Peach is definitely much better at golf than I am, and this is just so fun to play. I got on the green within 2 shots, and I was able to knock a birdie out on my first go, which means that I remember how to play the game, and it plays exactly as I expect to on the MiSTer FPGA. It also has a great soundtrack, so listen for 45 seconds, and I'll be back with more games that work.
Excellent! Nice birdie!
The music, the sound effects, and the voiceover all sound good, but I will say the voiceover is a little bit louder than it should be, but that happens on real hardware too, so I actually did send the volume down just a little bit to protect your guys' ears. But much like a real game of golf, the minute you're doing well, something has to go catastrophically wrong, and I'm going to catch 2 different bunkers and a tree on the last hole here. It's just how golf works. You think you're having a good day, and then suddenly everything goes to hell. But this is just so much fun again to see. I love this game. Mario Golf is just an absolute classic, whatever console you play it on, and having it here on MiSTer FPGA today, it's probably going to be the game that I play after I upload this video. I'll probably throw an hour or 2 into it just to have some fun. It's instantaneously pick up and playable, but you see there I missed my shot, and that's how golf works sometimes. Now, another game that seems to be working today in a very special means is Turok 2, but this is the kiosk demo version. You have to try to launch the original Turok 2 and have that auto check fail on the checksum, and then if you upload and run the kiosk version of Turok 2, you can get it playing on your Nintendo 64. It does not have any audio whatsoever. This is just a beta or prototype that was released to kiosks in malls and game stores where you could kind of play around with what Turok 2 was going to be. But to my knowledge, this never worked before this morning's update, but the real game is still not going to boot on your MiSTer. But it's another game that is working now. There's not a ton to it. It's just a 3-level demo, and it's definitely not complete whatsoever, but you can kind of check it out and see what Turok 2 looks like running on MiSTer FPGA today. Now, I will say the original Turok to me is still the best for my money, but tell me down below which Turok you prefer, because I would be curious. It was a massive franchise for Nintendo 64, and it's pretty much one of those games everyone growing up who had a Nintendo 64 seemed to own at least one Turok, and it always seemed to be the original game. I think it must have gone on sale at some point in time, and you could get it cheap. But as far as the performance here on MiSTer FPGA, this just seems to be running again perfectly fine. I don't see any visual glitches, I don't see any performance hitches. The only thing that doesn't seem to be working is there's no audio, but I would have to pop this game into my EverDrive and check on real hardware as well, because it's quite possible that this didn't actually have audio when it was sent over to demo in the kiosk units in and of itself. But it's another game that you're going to be able to play shortly on the Nintendo 64 core, because obviously now that Robert has started the implementation of TLB, if you know anything about his work habits, it's probably going to be done in like 36 hours. That is kind of a joke, kind of not a joke, but don't rush him. If it takes another 2 months, we should still be happy. But let's just jump off into the abyss and move into a little bit more Turok, because I love this cutscene in the beginning showing those pseudo real-time effects as those particle charges go by different areas of the screen. You can see structures light up and then go to shadow based upon the location of that light source, and it is doing that correctly. It was always a really nice touch to see stuff like that on the Nintendo 64, and in Turok 2 here looks absolutely good. Now onto another game that didn't used to work until this morning that does utilize TLB is Twisted Edge Snowboarding. Now this is basically the Kirkland brand 1080 snowboarding. If you're going to play one snowboarding game on the core, definitely make it 1080. I'm not saying Twisted Edge isn't a good game, it's a totally competent snowboarding game, but it's basically copying exactly what 1080 did, and it does it like 10 to 15% worse than 1080 does, so you may as well just pick the Nintendo original. But again, we're just talking about performance and FPGA core here and getting new games, and this is another one of those games that never used to work until Robert added that TLB implementation. And don't forget, if you don't know what that means, I do have a video on what TLB does, and I will leave it in a link below, but it's basically just a virtual memory addressing system where you can kind of page in and out memory, and if the game can't find the TLB addressing it needs, it's either going to freeze or throw up an exemption error because it's not going to be able to locate data where it seems to think it should be. And this is just the start of TLB. There's going to be a lot more, and I'm guessing you're going to probably see 2, 3, or 4 core revisions until it's complete. I doubt the next one's just going to add all of it. It's going to be a process. But again, one more audio sample, because this game actually does have kind of a fun soundtrack, and I'm pretty sure that was just a UFO that flew by. Don't know where it came from. I've never seen one in my skiing days, but if they are out there, I feel like they would be around mountains. Here's that soundtrack. Enjoy.
Whoa, what a great landing!
Pretty good soundtrack, and it fits the bill for a snowboarding game, but when I worked in skiing professionally, I would pretty much listen to Kiss or Van Halen, because I used to jump with my camera 150 or so feet into the air going through the backcountry, and for some reason Panama just made me feel invincible, but I will tell you I was not. I broke plenty of cameras and a couple ACLs along the way. That has nothing to do with TLB, it's just a fun little story, and you'll see right there, we win the race, or actually we get second, and we run right into the dude in front of us. Not exactly how you want to do your snowboarding today. Now on the list of games you're going to ask if they work or not, I'm going to go through some of them. Paper Mario right now still requires TLB that is not within the core, so that is just going to be a freeze at some point in time. Goemon, you're still not going to be able to get into the main game. It has been tested. It goes no further than it did before, and this is all emulation footage. Both Castlevania 64 and Legacy of Darkness are still going to be not working today. Hopefully in the next update we'll be able to get those. And the big one that everyone's going to ask about if I don't show it, GoldenEye, is still not working in the core because the TLB implementation for that is not complete. Conquer, another one of everyone's favorites. Hopefully this comes soon. It is absolutely a hilarious and fun 3D platformer. Not working, nor are my two other Bomberman games. I hope those come soon because you know how much I love Bomberman. And don't forget that Perfect Dark ran because some of the TLB checks were patched out. The normal ROM does not run on the current core, but hopefully it does soon. But one game that does work for better or worse is the Beast Wars game. It is such a mess of a title. Transformers Beast Wars Transmetals. Now I will admit I have not played this game in probably 20 years. I don't know the last time I even played it. I just know that I did. It is confusing. It is weird. It's got a lot of charm, but I'm just going to be bad at the game. And weirdly enough, when you run the game for the first time, it is set to very hard difficulty by default, so you definitely want to go in and change that. But the Nintendo 64 didn't have a metric ton of fighting games, and this one seems relatively competent, if a little bit weird, because when you go to the vehicle mode and the actual beast mode, it seems to be a little bit hard to actually land an attack on your opponent here. You'll see Pterosaur, a great name by the way, with a fun character design. It's really easy just to stay as a ranged attack, but when I'm actually flying around as that kind of dinosaur shape there, I just can't figure out how to land hits on my opponent. So if you know how to do that, leave me a comment down below, because I'm sure I'm going to retest this game in the future, because there's probably some fans out there. And if you do love this game, tell me down below and tell me what I'm missing about it. It's just one of those things I've never quite understood exactly its appeal, but I know some people do tend to love it. But as a technical example of TLB implementation, again, this was a game that didn't work outside of 8 hours ago when Robert uploaded that test core for TLB. And I can't wait to see when the next one comes out and what games it utilizes, because TLB was just a function, and within that there was many different address spaces and ways you could use it. So some games maybe just touch it once or twice so we have that implementation in, like Super Mario 64. There's only one TLB check at the beginning, and that is why you had to use the no-face patch to be able to play the game. Now with the TLB implementation this morning, you can see that face, you can pinch it, and you can play the rest of Super Mario 64. And I will say, outside of one transition where Peach's face turns to Bowser within the castle, if there's anything wrong with this, it is basically indistinguishable. If you play Super Mario 64 today on the current core, it feels exactly like playing real hardware outside of one little bit of visual trickery. But for me, the #1 game added this morning has definitely got to be Mario Golf. It's so much fun, it's a great party game, and I've got such fond memories of playing this. And it's even better on MiSTer FPGA because I now have that clean HDMI out to my television because my Nintendo 64 is still stock, and I play it on my PVM&S video, which looks incredible. It just doesn't scale that well when you try to put that S video into a scaler. But that's the current situation with the Nintendo 64 core. You know, if it gets updated early enough in the day, I'm going to bring you guys a video, and it is getting really close to Thanksgiving if you are one of my American viewers. So if you are, I hope you have a great Thursday. I will have a MiSTer video up in the morning, but I probably won't be responding to many comments because I'm going to be jamming my face full of turkey and alcohol the way I love to do it. But go grab the new core, play yourself some Mario Golf and Killer Instinct Gold, and have a great weekend. I'll see you for the next core update. Hope you guys enjoyed the vid. Bye bye.